Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Jennifer and you are listening to the Ego Next Door podcast. Today's episode is a special one that I wasn't sure I would record. Talking about this topic is difficult for me, but I believe that it is important and it might help many of you listening. Statistics on domestic violence during the holiday season are shocking and upsetting, and this episode goes especially out to anyone who has ever been through abuse during the holiday season or in family settings. I hope that this episode can help you feel less alone and less misunderstood, no matter what your current situation is. Over major holidays such as Christmas and New Year's, there is a significant rise in expressive violence offenses. In fact, the busiest months for specialized family violence support services are typically December and January. It has been reported that the number of cases doubles around the holidays. But when we talk about expressive violence, we cannot rely only on the physical aspect of it. Identifying non-physical abuse can be very challenging because abusers can be quite good at masking their behaviors. So today we are going to talk about spending the holidays with narcissistic, abusive family members, especially when, according to them, you are the weakest link. I am going to share some of my personal experiences, but I want you to feel invited to reflect on your own as well. I would love to hear your stories. I think that in this episode, we can share our experiences and support each other, so none of us has to feel alone during this season. The holidays often highlight how isolated we feel, especially when our family dynamics are dysfunctional compared to others who have more normal relationships. When dealing with narcissistic family members, holidays can feel like an impossible test. If you grew up with a parent who set high expectations for the season, you likely know what I mean. It's not about creating joy for others or ensuring everyone enjoys the day. It's about fulfilling their specific vision of perfection. Narcissistic family members demand that everyone around them conforms to their narrative, regardless of how unrealistic or selfish that narrative might be. For many of us, the holidays become difficult and triggering, not because of the season itself, but because of the weight of these expectations. We may have romanticized the idea of the holidays, the cute traditions, the magic behind Christmas or New Year's, those cliches we see everywhere. However, for many of us, it's a time of painful reminders. Whether it's not getting the right gift to please a parent or partner, or uncomfortable family conversations with protruding questions and comments that make you feel like a failure, the holidays reinforce a sense of isolation and the realization that no matter how hard we try, we will never be able to meet other people's expectations. These expectations can go from the way that we choose to live our lives to our identity to even the added pressure of maintaining control over meals or gatherings. And all of this together can create an environment that can feel quite suffocating. As a child, I spent holidays with extended family, cousins, aunts, and uncles. For a brief time, it was fun. I could play with my cousins, and as an only child, it felt like a little escape. But over time, I started noticing something. No matter what anyone did, it was never enough for my mother. If I didn't play my part in the story she had scripted, the day would be ruined. This led to an overwhelming sense that my whole existence was off track, simply because I could not meet her unrealistic standards. For many of us, this feeling of inadequacy grows deeper over time. As I got older, I dissociated more during the holidays. It was a way to cope with the pressure and disappointment. Things only became clearer and more painful when I moved to America when I was 12 years old. Suddenly, the facade of a normal holiday was gone. I was left with the reality of just me, my self-absorbed mother, and my enabling stepfather. And that's when I realized the holidays were not about joy or family. They were about control, and perfection. Every little detail of the holidays had to fit their narrative. From what we ate to the presents that were given, nothing could deviate from what she envisioned. Nothing. And if you dared to express any need for rest or felt unwell, it was a betrayal. I was expected to power through it, no matter how sick I felt. So Christmas for me became less about the childhood magic that I dreamt of. It symbolized the lifting of the veil. It became a constant reminder of how much I tried to please my mother, to make her happy, to fulfill an impossible role. And maybe you can relate to the sense that no matter how hard you try, it is never enough. For me, Christmas was only about attempting to make her happy, finding a gift that wouldn't be too cheap or too cute or not her style. It never was about the thought behind the gift. It was about how the gift reflected on the person giving it. That is, me. This was her way of showing superiority, for me to feel like I could do nothing without her assistance and guidance. Even gift giving to her required her close approval. And this started quite young. I remember I started purchasing gifts for my mother when I was about 8 years old, and I would use the money that I would save up from money that I was given by family members. And of course, her reactions from the first gift I ever gave her to the last were always the same: utter disappointment and insatisfaction. But I never stopped trying. So I remember one year I was determined to get my mother the perfect gift. She had mentioned throughout the year wanting a fondue machine to make chocolate fondue because we only had one to make the cheese fondue and she didn't want to use the same one. So that year I got her a chocolate fondue machine shaped like a little penguin, something that I thought she would love and find adorable. But her reaction was less than ideal. Instead of joy and laughter, she looked at it with disgust and totally dismissed it. She forcefully smiled while giving some backhanded compliment, then proceeded to never use it. 2 years later, I asked about it because I was planning to use it for a family dessert, to which she responded nonchalantly, "Oh, I threw it in the trash." Her reaction was devastating to me. Not because of the gift itself ending up in the dumpster, but because once more it was a confirmation of her inability to appreciate anything that didn't align perfectly with her own vision of what was good enough. And this kind of criticism was not isolated to just me. I've seen it happen with other people in narcissistic families. Even when you give exactly what they ask for, it is still wrong. If you have experienced this, you know the frustration of constantly trying to please someone who cannot be pleased. But if only things were just resumed in dissatisfaction for gift giving. But no, this type of scenario was used as a leverage later, brought up in arguments of how horrible of a daughter I was for being unable to do something as simple as giving something fitting. And as you might have guessed, this tendency to please carried into my adult relationships. I ended up dating someone who mirrored my mother's narcissism and repeated the same patterns. For example, one Christmas, I gave my ex-partner tickets to see a soccer match in Barcelona, along with airfare, accommodations, and a planned weekend getaway so we could enjoy it together. His dream was to see a Barcelona match with Messi playing, so I wanted to make him happy. Instead, he accused me of being selfish, saying I had used the gift as an excuse to travel with him because I was incapable of traveling alone. The heartbreaking part of this isn't just that I was with someone who didn't appreciate my effort. It's that I allowed myself to believe that the best way to love someone was to keep giving and keep trying even when it was never enough and would never be enough. But I know that this is not just me. Many of you might relate to putting yourself last, trying to please someone who will never truly appreciate your efforts. This gets even more complex if the gift that they are giving you appears to be very thoughtful or expensive. But this is what you need to know about narcissists. Narcissists don't view gift giving the same way most of us do. For them, it's less about generosity and more about power. Gift giving for them becomes an instrumental act to maintain control over the recipient. They may act like they are being generous, but the reality is the gift that they are giving is often just a tool to reinforce their dominance. And as you may have guessed, this of course feeds onto the people-pleasing tendencies of victims of narcissistic relationships. Because the way they react and make you feel about your effort and attempts to make them happy will either transform you into an absolute avoidant of all things gift-giving or make you live your life in a relentless pursuit for pleasing other people and neglecting yourself, especially during the holidays. What I always truly wanted during the holidays was very simple. Thoughtful, meaningful moments with loved ones. Gifts that didn't have to be expensive, just heartfelt. I yearned for a warm, cozy night where everyone could share in that spirit of love and peace. Instead, I found myself trapped in a cycle of criticism and rejection. And many of you may have felt the same, desiring a simple, peaceful holiday, yet feeling overwhelmed by the pressures and expectations that others place on you. When I tried to share my desire for peace and simplicity with my mother, it was met with mockery. To her, materialism and reputation were far more important than love or thoughtful gestures. And if you've had similar experiences, you know how painful it can be to express your true desires only to be ridiculed or dismissed. But here's the truth. The little things matter. Peace, love, and human connection are what make the holiday meaningful, not the price tag of their gifts or the appearances you put on for others. And of course, if you have dealt with a narcissistic family member or partner, you know exactly what I mean. There is something particularly insidious about how narcissistic family members can put on a show of normalcy during the holidays, making everything seem perfect, while deep down, you know it's all fake. This creates confusion because we see a glimpse of what we think could be a healthy family dynamic, but deep down we know it's all performative, and this leaves us feeling betrayed and bitter about the hypocrisy. This year is the second holiday season I spent without my mother or any other family member. And it is one filled with mixed emotions. While it reminds me of painful past experiences, it is also becoming a symbol of freedom. I broke free from that cycle. And so can you. For the first time in years, I don't feel obligated to please anyone who can't appreciate the little things. And I'm learning that I don't have to live in a constant state of stress, guilt, or pressure. So if you are in a similar situation, I encourage you to prioritize your peace. Holidays should be a time of joy, not a reminder of how toxic family dynamics can drain you. Creating distance and setting boundaries, even if in your case it is temporary, can be the first step towards healing. So as we enter this season, my hope for you is that you can find peace and nourishment in the little things. Just like any other time of the year, the holidays should be a time for love, connection, and self-care, not stress or guilt. You deserve to spend this time on your own terms, focusing on what makes you happy, not on fulfilling the expectations of others. Remember, the best gifts that you can give yourself is peace of mind and all the things that you wanted as a child that you did not receive. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, and don't ever let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing your own well-being. If you have felt the weight of guilt for many years, know that breaking free is absolutely worth it. You deserve a holiday season filled with comfort, regardless of your family's expectations. So, this holiday, that is what I wish for you. The ability to find comfort and nurture your self-love, no matter the judgments or hypocrisy you may face. You deserve to rejoice in self-compassion and to create a life that truly reflects your values. I wish you peace, no matter what your circumstances are. And don't let anyone guilt you into thinking that choosing yourself is a selfish thing to do. On the next episode, we will continue discussing the themes from episode 21, delving deeper into the nature of emotional roller coasters, exploring the concepts of deep sensitivity, empaths, and highly sensitive people. Thank you for listening to the Ego Next Door podcast. See you soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ego Next Door. And if you would like to support my work, consider becoming a patron to my Patreon creator page at Jennifer Hachia. The Ego Next Door podcast is presented solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The content here is not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, or medical treatment of a qualified healthcare provider. Reliance on any information provided here is at your own risk. If you or someone you know is in crisis or experiencing suicidal thoughts, please reach out immediately to someone who can help right away. Call your national emergency services or go to the nearest hospital.